Hey, it's Alan here.
And Bree. And we are the hunter and the hippie.
Connected through yoga and bonded by our love of the wild places and the love for outdoors, we've come together to share our conversations about life.
Well, maybe more so what we've learned or are continuing to learn about life.
And that there's no one way to do it. Life, that is.
And hopefully provide you with some teeny tiny bits of inspiration to connect deeper with yourself, others, and our great Mother Earth.
All right. Enough already about the podcast. Let's just get to the podcast.
We're so professional.
We are. We're really going to have to share some outtakes. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure people are already lining up to ask us all of our tips and secrets for being such great podcasters.
Yeah, for sure. So you were skinning up a mountain? What
the local ski hill, Sleeping Giant. So
oh, nice.
It's 45 minutes to an hour west, so on the way to Yellowstone, just outside of Yellowstone.
Cool.
But they're only open Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Tuesday evenings, so you can skin up the mountain anytime.
That's awesome.
So we got a small ladies crew that this is week 2 of going and doing that. So
nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming by open you mean ski lifts run only those days, and then the rest of the time you can just skin up or do whatever. Gotcha.
Yeah. You could hike up. You could crawl up.
Nice. And you skin down. You ski down, right?
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
We just did one lap. It was super windy and not great conditions. It was raining when we got there, so even the snow was not optimal. But yeah.
Fun.
But how was your day?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Just, worked my corporate job, which I love. Helps me pay the bills and do my thing. So yeah. But other than that, I was looking forward to this. Looking forward to catching up with you, seeing how life was going, and doing our little thing.
Yeah.
So, do you want to get us started?
Yes, I will
Let's
do that. All right. So outtake. Start over. Just kidding.
This is all totally going in the first part of it.
I know. All right. Just finding a comfortable seated position. We'll take our few breaths together. So once you find your seat, or if you want to lie down, you can lie down. And then close your eyes or find a soft gaze. And bring your awareness fully into your natural breathing. Just noticing which parts of your body expand as you breathe in, and which parts of your body soften as you breathe out. Without changing anything, just noticing the feel of your breath in your body. Just allowing it to be however it shows up. Now bring to mind one thing from the day that you're grateful for. There's nothing too small. Then think of someone you're grateful for. And finally, think about one thing about yourself that you're grateful for. And taking this gratitude for all that is and all that isn't. And allow that to fill your body fully as you breathe in. And letting it settle as you breathe out. And when you're ready, you can gently flutter your eyes open. And coming back to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I am, I went through a list of many things that I'm grateful for today, and I'm happy you started. That wasn't planned for us, right? Like, you just did it. And I was thinking about opening and saying how grateful I am for all the listeners. We surpassed over 100 listens for our podcast, the first episode. So I'm so grateful for all of you out there that are listening to us just have a conversation about life. And I wanted to make sure everyone knew that.
Yeah, just tuning in and sharing, and even just all the feedback that we've received, and we welcome that always.
For sure. And some great questions too. So Bree and I have talked about doing a Q&A podcast as well, where we'll take a bunch of questions and bringing on some guests. We're open to many things, so throw those ideas out there for us.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about a few things that I think that I'm very passionate about. I know Bree is very passionate about. So with the new year beginning, what are we, 13 days into the new year? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people probably have broken many of their resolutions already. I hope not, right? But it's likely, right? So we're going to be talking about resolutions. We're going to be talking about the things that I do with my year and how I operate. So most of you know I set themes and I have goals that I work towards. And I'll let Bree jump in and share a little bit about what she does for hers.
Yeah, and I'm going to just turn all of that upside down. When Alan messaged me about, we kind of created this little system where one person will give 3 ideas for topics and the other will choose it. So it kind of makes it easier because there's so many things to talk about. And I think the timing of New Year's resolutions and goals is excellent. But I also have evolved a lot in my reasons and approaches to all of that. And so it was really funny because when after I'd said, let's do New Year's resolutions, I have a lot to say about it. And Alan had written back, can we also talk about how we set goals? And I was like, yeah, I stopped doing goals. So we can talk about it. So it's very exciting. And I think this is kind of this is what the podcast really like sits in, is this idea of like, right, there's no one way to do it. And mm-hmm. So I think it's a cool opportunity for us to each kind of share where we're at with it, and also that like you can do it any way you want. Mm-hmm. What works for you. So
yeah, and that a few other things immediately come to mind is, right, like we're different, right? We're all different, and that's cool, and we're supposed to have those conversations about our differences, and that's life, right? Like, as we all know what's going on in the world right now, I think that there needs to be more listening happening. Mm-hmm. So while I still set goals, Bree doesn't. And that's cool. And I'm excited to hear what she has to say, because there's probably a whole lot that I can learn from her. And I'm hoping a whole lot of learning out there as everyone tunes in.
Mm-hmm. And I think that exactly what you said is just the openness that you can have in a conversation,
mm-hmm.
and having those conversations in a way that you're not already deciding the outcome or deciding what you're going to take away from it. but having an open heart and really truly listening, because you never know what you can learn from someone who does something differently than you. And I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I guess, part of the reason why we started this as well, was to have those conversations and, let the world see them. So,
what's your theme for this year? Let's start there.
So my theme is, so I've shared it already. If you follow me on social media, you may or may not know it. If you don't follow me on social media, The Life of Alan Tatone, at The Life of Alan Tatone on Instagram, underscores between each word. Get after it. You can watch my shenanigans. Sorry, a little plug, but my theme is to act like a child. So why should I act like a child? Well, children, one, they're fucking awesome, right? Why wouldn't you want to act like a child? But really, like, I think about, there's a few key things that I picked when I picked Act Like a Child, and how I came up with it, right? We'll get into all of this. Why I do themes versus resolutions. We'll dive deep into all that, but the initial thought behind it was I was at my friend's house in Phoenix, and she has 2 kids. I consider them my niece and nephew, and they're small. They're 2.5 years old. And I'm a really picky eater. If you haven't been out to eat with me, if you've never eaten with me, I'm a really picky eater. And she made a chicken green chili something. And I, of course, didn't like it. So I ended up with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some goldfish crackers, like the 2.5-year-olds. And so I ended up sitting at the picnic table with them, this little plastic picnic table. So I sat at the kids' table, and I'm this, giant compared to these 2 little humans. And they just thought it was normal that I was just sitting there and eating dinner with them. And but kids, they're so curious. They make friends so easy. I remember thinking about when I was a kid, and right, like, it was just like, hey, do you want to be my friend? Right? Like, why don't we do that? Why do we stop doing that? Where did we lose our curiosity to explore? And, I don't think a lot of kids have their egos all built up yet. Right. And I think that's a big part of it, is that children, they're just going to do something. And if it doesn't work out, they're like, oh, okay. And they move on, and they do the next thing. Or they figure out a way to do it. Right. So they're relentless. They're persistent. If you think about a child and how they learn to walk, they go to stand up and they fall down, and sometimes they get hurt and they cry, and they don't just stop doing it. And we never have a doubt as adults when there's a child, a baby crawling, of is this child going to walk? It's when is the child going to walk? Right, and when will they get their stability, and how many times will they fall, right? And we get them little toys, like these little walker toys, to help them learn to walk. And there's no doubt that it is going to happen. And we need to have that persistence in life, right? We lose that somewhere along the way. And I'm not sure where. I think ego is a big part of it. I think our egos get hurt. I think our egos get big and they get in the way. But yeah, so the theme is to act like a child and just be curious and have fun. And I'm really, really excited about it. The other day I was just having one of those adult days, right? Rough day at work, rough day in life. And there's a little park where we take our dog to, right behind my house, and took my dog out, and I swung on the monkey bars a little bit. And nice. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna act like a kid right now. I'm gonna go swing on the monkey bars. And I went and did it. And it was cool. Got outside, got some sun, and why not?
I feel like it's crazy. You're talking about this is somehow we're on the same wavelength, because I talked this week has been all about that idea of curiosity and coming back to the same idea that we just opened with, of having a conversation with and just listening and not having your judgments or predetermining. And that's the child, right? The child does not have all these experiences to tell them the way the world should be. They're actually just fully experiencing it, and they have a curiosity, and there's, right, the beginner's mindset is all about that as well. And and it's also something that this trilogy that I'm like deep into is about a Lakota elder. It's, if anyone wants to look it up, Kent Nurburn. The first is Neither Wolf Nor Dog, and now I'm on the third book. And it talks a lot about this connection of children and our elders and how they're closest to the great mystery. And I think that in whether you have spiritual or religious beliefs, it really doesn't matter. It comes back to this idea that of that curiosity and that openness. And that allows them to, again, like, I'm just going to keep trying to stand up, and I'm going to keep trying to walk, because we haven't said that I'm just the person who doesn't walk. But how often in our lives do we fail at something and we just say, well, I'm not the person, this is not who I am, like, I'm just the person who can't walk, or, but it's also someone else tells you, or for some reason you've made up your mind. I mean, I'm just like, I think my dad told me that my body's not built for marathons. So I could have just like sat there and been like, well, I'm just never going to try to run a marathon because like my body's not built for a marathon. And but we do it in life. We do it everywhere. We do it in our career. We don't apply for jobs. There's so much that we just don't do because we've somehow decided that's just who we are, and we're not curious.
Yeah, and I love, initially you said, right, like we fail and then we stop doing things, and then you went to, right, like we get to the point where we don't even try, right? We just stop trying, right? We get these things that are told to us by people who have these limiting beliefs on themselves, and they express them out to other people. I think that's a big one, right? Like we see that I can't do something, so if I can't do it, well, you surely can't do it, and we project that out. So I think that's huge, and I think that's another part as the child grows up. We have these biases, these these feelings about ourselves, and we project them onto our children and our nieces and nephews and our just the younger generation. And there's we see a lot of it today, I believe, where they're like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. Right. And was that a true statement that you said that your dad, that you weren't built for marathons?
Yeah, he just said your body's not built for marathons, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go run a marathon.
How many have you run?
Well, I've only run one organized marathon. I've run 2 50Ks, which is 30 to 32 miles, and I've run a 50 miler. So yeah, I haven't ran the marathon distance, but I've run some ultras. But I've run the marathon distance, in training, and and I think that first actual marathon I ran was like a little bit of like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And he wasn't saying anything wrong. Like, my body, right? You could not be built for something, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, right? So like my body might not be built for it, but my mind could, or my spirit could. And but I think, and that's what's tough, is like kids at a young age learn about themselves from what other people tell them they are. And the learning, I think, and everyone learns differently, and I think it's a really fascinating thing to just like even explore between like male and female brains, and then different cultures and what they learn at a young age, and then they go into like the school system, and how that can drastically shape just like the way they develop into an adult. Yeah,
I love that you brought up cultures, because I think a lot of that happens at home. right? There's a lot of cultures out there that you learn a lot from just being home with your family and seeing how they interact. And right, I grew up in New York and in Arizona. In Arizona, there's a high population of Mexican Americans or Mexicans, and the culture is very much, female. It's a patriarchy where, females are at home, some go to work, but they do the cooking, and, the men, work, come home, and, and they expect the dinner on the table, that type of thing. Again, I'm making overgeneralizations, right? I believe that's changing in the world as a whole. But overall in a culture, from what I've seen, it's not anything that's said, but it's definitely learned. And, I think we see that now with women entering the workforce a while back, and now, right, where women are starting to shatter the glass ceiling and, become CEOs. And I think that we're starting to see more women on, board of directors and that type of thing. So I think we just continue to challenge that. And I think that there's still the thought of that child, that inner child in us. And we do push those boundaries in a lot of ways. But I also think we get trapped in them too. And I really have something to kind of spin off of what you brought up. And I think what's important is, as we try to open these doors, that we're not closing the old doors. And as just speaking to the female, because that's my own personal experience, I was trapped in the world that to be successful as a woman, I should be the CEO of a major company. And that's, I felt there has been so much a push to shatter that glass ceiling, which I think is great. If that is what you want, that is a beautiful thing, and pursue that. But it's also a beautiful thing to be a mother. And I didn't want to have children until my early 30s. And part of that was I didn't see that as successful. And now I see it as I have a superpower.
Yep. I have a superpower that you, Alan, don't have.
I don't have.
And
you have a superpower.
How are we not glorifying that while we also glorify the person who wants to run a company? And that's what I think gets tough, is we try to fight for certain rights, but we actually lose sometimes in that fight the magic of who we are.
Agreed.
I don't know. Yeah.
I totally agree. I love that you brought that up, right? If that's your thing, then go for it. Right. And that applies to anything and everything. If that's what you want to do, I know I don't watch a whole lot of sports, but I believe it was the San Francisco 49ers football team had the first female coach, right? First female coach ever to be on a football field in the NFL. Got them to the Super Bowl their first year. I don't think she was a head coach, but I know it was the first. It never happened before. Got them to the Super Bowl, and that's freaking amazing, right? And that's what she wanted. She went for it, but that's not who you have to be, or right? If that's what you want to do, great, and we should support that. But to your point, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, and I know many, that's awesome too. And yeah, you're so right. You have a power that 50% of the world doesn't have.
Yeah.
And that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and I just bring that up to say that, again, when we open doors, we need to remember not to shut the other doors, and not to forget that, we need to make sure we're glorifying everyone's choice to pursue their path versus, this is, it's almost like we malified it, it was almost to be equal, you have to be the male, versus let's actually glorify these things that I have within me that maybe a male isn't predisposed to, and vice versa. I think we each have superpowers that we should celebrate, and then allow people to choose how they use them or not use them.
Agreed. Yeah, and that's a really great point when it comes to setting goals or whatever it is that you do, right? If you set goals, you set resolutions, and maybe you do these resolutions and you break them 13 days into the month, right? And that's where a change probably has to happen. But shit, I forgot where I was going with this. Brain fart. What were you saying right before this?
Superpowers. Just all the superpowers.
Superpowers. There you go. Thank you. So, whatever it is that you wake up and do, right? Like I wake up and I go to work for a corporation, and I love my job, right? It's gotten me to where I am in life. It's gotten me to be able to provide the life that I love for both me and my wife, and have amazing friends. But there's also something out there that, right, my goal isn't to be the CEO of a major corporation, right? And if that happens, great, right? If that happens along the way, that's great. And I'll take that as it comes. But one of the things as I was preparing for this episode, I was just writing down some thoughts and some notes in my journal. And, I was thinking about how many hours are in the day, how many people bitch about going to work. How many people bitch about the job that they have to go to pay their bills, or they don't want to do it, right? They don't want to get out of bed. And I'll tell you this, right? My job doesn't get me out of bed, right? That's not what keeps me going, right? I love my job. It's great, but I'm not like, yeah, let's go talk credit cards, right? That's, yes, I enjoy it. I do. And I believe I'm helping the people that I help in a great way. But the things that I get out of bed for are very different, right? And our goals and our themes and our sankalpas, which you're going to get into, I'm not even going to give the definition, right? So we have to have those goals outside of that, right? You're looking forward. One of the things I saw today was, I can't wait till Friday. Wow. Really? Like, you can't wait till Friday. You wait, there's 7 days in a week, and you wait for one day, and you get to enjoy, and you don't even get the full Friday, right? If that's your goal is to wait to Friday, right? You're waiting till Friday, usually until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, and then you get to your Saturday, and then by Sunday you're like, shit, Monday's here again, right? And I think they've made movies about this, Groundhog Day and many other things, right? But Office Space addresses it in a quite humorous way. But for me, Fridays are great, but so are Mondays. And I know that I work, there's days I work 8, 10, 12 hours. Okay, great. I'm going to put in that time. But then after that, what am I doing? So I sleep. Me personally, like I probably don't get enough sleep, but I'll sleep anywhere from 5 to 7, 8 hours, closer to the lower side. But I did the math. If you work 8 to 10 hours a day and sleep 6 to 8, you have between 14 and 18 hours left in your day. And with that time, what are you doing with it? Sorry, not 14, 18. That's the total. That's the total. My bad. I don't know how to do math. I'm looking at my notes all wrong. Yeah.
I want your days.
You have 6 to 10 hours left in your day.
Still a lot of hours.
Right. It's still a lot of hours. And honestly, moving to Colorado, I moved to Colorado 5 years ago, and I noticed people do things during the week, right? Because I used to be that way. I used to be like, wait till Friday. Work my job, come home, sit on the couch, watch TV, do nothing. And there's still days where I do that, and I'm not knocking that if that's what you enjoy, right? If that's your time to wind down. But moving here to Colorado, especially in like the summertime when you have those longer days, longer periods of light, it's like, what are you doing? Oh, after work, I'm going to climb the Flatirons, or I'm going into Boulder Canyon, right? Or I'm going to do a 13-mile run, or right, there's all these things and that you can do in these 6 to 10 hours that you have left in your day. Right. So if you're looking at your day and you're like, I don't have enough time, and I get it, right? Like you have families, you have people with children, right? Children, that adds a lot to your schedule. But there's also, you have to do for you too. Right. And there's, if you're sitting on the couch and watching 3 hours of TV and then you're like, oh, my life isn't fulfilled. Well, maybe change the 3 hours of TV that you're watching. Maybe go down to an hour or something like that. But we have to get better at analyzing our time. At least I know I have, and I probably could still do a better job of it. And that's where we find our superpower. So, right. So that's where I'm getting back to what you said with the superpowers, is that while your superpower might be good in a corporation or doing whatever it is, you're a mechanical engineer. There's a lot of engineers here in Colorado. You're a, electrical engineer, whatever it is that you do, right? That might be an expression of your superpower, but is that what gets you out of bed? Is that what makes you want to live and want to do your job, want to do your corporation job, and, get out and go rock climbing and set, for me, set goals that the impact that I want to make. And, one of them was starting this podcast. I've talked about starting a podcast for years, and I've just never done it. And, we talked about it and we're like, fuck it, let's make it happen. And now is a better time than ever, right? There's a Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now, right? And you just got to get out there and you just got to do it. And it might suck and you might fail. And that's where it's like, be like a child. So what? Who cares? Be silly, right? That's what I love about you, is like you have this silly way about you. And like, even when we talk, like, like even you're like 14 hours left in the day, you're like, wow, that's great. Like, so you got to just get out there and enjoy, be silly, be curious. The things that I picked was be silly, be curious, be strong, right? If you ever notice the strength of a child, it could be their physical strength, but they're just relentless. They continue to go forward no matter what. My niece at a young age was trying to help my sister. She reached up on the counter for a cup of coffee, and it was a burning hot cup of coffee. She spilled it all over her shoulder. And, she got burnt. She has some scars. And the doctor even said to us in the ER, this is going to cause more damage to you as the adult than it does to her. Because she was so young, she has no clue. She doesn't remember a single thing that happened. She still has a little bit of scarring, but nothing major. And it's like, she has no clue, right? So as children, things happen. They get hurt, right? You scrape your knee, you fall off your bike. Do you remember all those things? No, right? You keep moving forward. Being persistent, being independent, being adventurous, being honest. God, holy shit. Kids are so honest. I don't know if you've ever had a kid say something to you and you're like, well, that's fucking true. I'm going to go cry in the corner now. So that's where, you brought up superpowers. I think that we all have something to offer to the world. And it's just, are we putting it out there? And that's one of the reasons I wanted to start the podcast. I don't know what my superpower is yet, but I'm hoping we find it.
It's in that. You've got a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think we all do. But,
yeah.
And I think we just have to do things to get it out there and figure it out. What do you love to do? And what are you passionate about?
How do you pick your theme? So what's the process for that?
That's a great question. So I think it comes back from reflecting on the year, the years past, reflecting on things that I want, right? Reflecting on or looking into what I think it's going to require to achieve my goals, right? And the big thing that for me picking the year to act like a child was was two things: was the persistence and being silly, right? And I'm naturally silly, and right, that's people, right? I'm just a goofball, right? I laugh at the dumbest jokes. Me and my best friend that I grew up with in New York, we've been friends for 37 years. Yeah, 37 years. Like we just send the stupidest dad jokes. It's just ridiculous. And I crack up and I think they're hilarious. Like you can tell me the dumbest joke and I'll laugh for an hour at it. And I just see the kids like, yeah, you just gotta laugh sometimes. And I talk about this in my yoga class. Look at this. We're like 10, 15 minutes in, and this is the first mention of yoga. That's amazing. But
wait, you broke I know it's going to be on the garage band, but
yeah.
You broke up and I couldn't hear what you said when you,
okay.
Right
so I said it's been 10, 15 minutes and I first mentioned yoga. So I was talking about I was talking about my yoga class. I was like, this is the first mention of yoga in this episode. But in my yoga class, I tell people, I say it's not about the pose, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's so focused on the pose, and it's more about the journey. And I'm not going to get into that. But what I say is, if you fall out of the pose, laugh, mm-hmm. right? We get so frustrated, right? We try to do a pose. We get so frustrated. We bang our fists and we get angry and why can't I do this? And we have these expectations. And my thought is like, this is how you react to yoga? Fuck, I feel bad for you, because when life gets bad, it's going to, I promise you, it gets bad for all of us, right? When life gets bad, how are you going to react to that? Mm-hmm. Right? Yoga is a practice, right? When it's on your mat, you practice, right? You are getting ready for the shit that's about to happen to you in life. Mm-hmm. Right? And I say all the time, yoga happens off of the mat, right? We come to our mats to get ready for what's about to happen off of the mat. And when you fall out of that pose, laugh, be silly. Who cares? And oftentimes in my class, like we're like, hey, just fucking try it. Be silly. It doesn't matter. Right. And smile when you fall out and laugh when you fall out. And you know what? If you have a partner doing yoga with you, laugh at them. Right. Don't laugh at someone you don't know. That's not nice. But right. Laugh at your partner, because that's, you can laugh or cry. And sometimes there's absolutely a time to cry. Right. I'm not saying that we don't cry, but yeah, you know what? Life's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. I guarantee it. Right. That's a guarantee that there's going to be hard times in life. And how do we respond to them? And children, right? Like they'll cry, they'll fall down, they'll cry. And then whether it's crocodile tears or not, they get up and then they just start going on with their life because they're strong and they're persistent. And that's my thought is like, just laugh, be silly. Like I was having a bad day. I'm going to go play on the fucking monkey bars. Why not? Right. So I look at, right. You asked, how do I get started? How do I get my theme? How do I pick my theme? This one, I already told that story, right? I sat down and, I think I shared a picture online, of me sitting at this table, with my niece and nephew. It's just this tiny little plastic picnic table, having some dinner with them, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, eating like a kid. And they were so happy, right? Because no one probably ever sits at that table with them. Mm. Right? And they're probably like, whoa, what's this guy doing? The year before was the year of failure. And that, I don't remember exactly how I chose that theme, but I knew that we have this feeling, right? We talked about at the beginning about failure, that we don't want to fail. We talked about this in our first episode too. We don't want to suck at something new. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we have to. If you want to get your superpower out there, you want to figure out what your superpower is, you have to be ready to suck at something new. You have to be ready to fail. Year before that, everyone hated me for that year, because that was the year of core. And everyone in my yoga classes were required to participate in the year of core. They didn't have a choice. So we would just do a shit ton of core work. Yeah. And that for me, that was personal. I have some lower back stuff and hip injury stuff that I deal with. And your core, right? Core's life, right? Without your core, you wouldn't have anything. But really to work on strengthening your core. And people just think like it's abs and having a six-pack. That's not your core, right? Your core is all the muscles on the sides of your ribs, your back muscles, your glutes, the muscles, the hip flexors in the front of your legs. So it was really about just strengthening that and being able to provide a better life for myself. And as you mentioned in the first episode, that yoga, I'm a yogi, but I'm not. And I do yoga to make myself healthier, to do the other things. And that's, so that's where that theme came from. And I decided to start theming my years after, I haven't set resolutions for a while because I would never do them. Right. And I don't know when I would lose them, right? If it was 13 days into a month or a month in or 2 months in, I just would set these resolutions and I'm like, one, why does it have to be at the start of a new year? Right. And we get into this cyclical bullshit, I guess, of, oh, well, I fell off the wagon. I guess we're going to wait till next year. No, you still have 11 months to go. Yeah. You didn't do it. Right. And that's where I think a theme is really good. Is because if I don't do or act like the theme, I wake up tomorrow and I have a whole nother shot at it. And I get to try it again. And I'm not beating myself up by saying, oh, you didn't go to the gym today. Right. So I have one of my many vices is I drink Coca-Cola, right? As you can see in all my episodes, if you're watching, right? Coca-Cola is terrible for you. I know it. You don't have to tell me. Right, like it's loaded with sugar, right? And crappy processed sugar, right? It's not even natural. And I've tried to quit drinking Coke for years, and it just doesn't work. I love the taste of it, but for this year, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to try to quit drinking Coke. I'm going to try to drink more water. That's it, and it's working. I'm like, oh, because I think about it, I'm like, oh, like no, you can drink the Coke, but you have to drink more water too. And it takes away time from me being able to drink Coke. Yeah. And it just makes me, oh crap. And now I go to the bathroom so much. Like, I'm like, holy shit. Like I got to pee all the time. And, so like I don't have time now to drink the amount of soda that I was drinking. And I'm just going to keep at it. And there's days where I don't drink enough water and that's cool. And I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Because yesterday doesn't matter.
Well, I think that is what you're like, that specifically is a lot of my beef with New Year's resolutions. And just in general, my shift in approach to a few things. And I tell this story a lot. And there's one of the shamans I read and follow. His shaman was talking about, said, Alberto, you spend all your time.
Can I interrupt? Yeah. Can you just give an overview of a shamanism, right? I know.
I feel like people should look it up because it's very different from culture to culture.
So I read something recently, or I heard someone say recently that, my wife's watching a show, one of those reality shows. And the lady she couldn't go see a shaman because she's a Christian. So that's why, like, first off, like a lot of people might not know what it is. Like I think of like even me, like I go like the witch doctor route almost. Yeah. And I'm really sorry to cut you off, but I just want to give maybe just a little taste, a little flavor of what it is that a shaman is. Why they're out there, right? Are they witch doctors with powder and potions and right, like all that type of stuff?
Yeah, it's hard. I don't want to do it injustice, and so if you are really curious, spend time really researching it and reading. And
we'll put resources. We'll put resources in the show notes. So
they're typically like the medicine healer of a tribe. It's again it's different from each areas. They're all over. They're all over the world. but that would be like if I could put it into a simple like label, it would be like the medicine man or the medicine healer of a tribe.
So the doctor, right?
Yeah.
They're using natural.
They'd be using anything from spirits to actual plants, or even just like the spirit of plants or animals, and again, each tribe has different relations with that. And the books I mentioned earlier can also give you like great insight. I'm trying. I have also had a very shifting relationship with people in who are shamans who don't necessarily come from native, like indigenous tribe. I think it's a really wonderful way that traditions are being passed along, and there's some really cool stories. There's a woman who was working with a medicine woman in South America, and this medicine woman said, my daughter isn't interested, but my granddaughters are, but I want to make sure that they learn. So I will teach you these ways. It was a white woman, I think probably from the United States. I will teach you these ways as long as you promise to teach my granddaughters. And so it was like a way of passing those traditions down. I think what I would say with these practices, it's not... We're so, in our culture, we're so like, do the training, get the certification, check the boxes. And I took some trainings, but I would not call myself a shaman. I don't even call myself a healer. I also don't believe people need to be healed. I think they just need to see that they're whole. And I use some principles of working with nature and for like quote unquote healings. However, like even within tribes, like you are kind of like you are chosen to be a shaman. It's not like, okay, I want to go be this, so I'm going to go do this. It's like, it's very bigger than you, and it's bigger than your mind can even wrap around, because this is these more subtle levels. And so that's why I'm like, oh, it's hard to like even put it into words.
Right.
But that gives you like a simple phrase of it would be the medicine man or medicine woman of a tribe. So the
awesome.
man, like this shaman who he studied with tribes in the Andes and spent a lot of time with them. But the phrase that he said was, or the story his shaman told him was, or said to him was, Alberto, you're a weeder. You spend all your time pulling weeds out of your gardens that you have no time to water the things you want to grow. You have no time, you're not spending any time watering the fruit trees or the flowers or the vegetables. And why that connected with me so much is, and he goes, you can let yourself have a few weeds, right? And so many different levels of this I connected with, because first of all, energy flows where attention goes.
Absolutely.
So if you keep thinking about what you want to change, you're still giving energy to the thing that you want to change.
Right.
But
Or what you don't want.
Yeah, right? So instead of saying like, I want to stop drinking Coke, you're giving Coke energy by saying I'm going to stop drinking Coke.
100%.
But now you're saying I'm going to drink more water. So you're giving energy to the thing that you want versus energy to the thing that you don't want. So that in itself is going to put you in more of a path to, again, energy is going to flow to whatever you're saying.
It's giving me power. As I go to grab a Coke now, it's more like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to drink water first. And if I want Coke, I'll go grab one a little later.
So the other part is like, why are we pulling out all the things we do? Like, again, we're putting more energy into pulling the things out that we don't want versus what we do want. And then the second part is just like, let there be some weeds. Like that's actually life. Like life is going to have weeds. Even if you think about a weed in one garden isn't a weed, and mint is a weed.
Yeah.
But if you love mojitos, like mint is not a weed.
Yeah, dandelions are a weed.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I get a lot of dandelions in my backyard, and I love them. I do, right? That just, it's like a sea of yellow, not the flowering one, right? The actual flower itself, not the seed plant, but the flower itself I think it's pretty. And when I look out my window, I see like a bunch of these yellow, and my neighbor got mad at me for letting them all grow, because when they turn into the seed plant and then they blow everywhere, they're really hard to get rid of. But I'm like, fuck it, they're pretty. Like, look at them. Look at all the yellow. Who cares?
And they make really good tea.
Yeah, exactly. You can eat them. You can put them in a salad.
Yeah. If you ever run out of food, just go to your front yard.
Yeah.
Go foraging. But that's really my shift. Well, for New Year's resolutions, first is what you said. Why am I going to wait to a new year to like do something? If I want to do something, I'm going to start doing it now. I'm not going to be like, okay, well, maybe in 3 months I'll work on this.
Right.
The second part is I've shifted towards reflecting back, like what in the last year, what am I proud of? What did I accomplish? Because I used to come from this place of like never even taking time. Like it's like, get there, get this goal, move on, right? Like you don't actually like sit in the experience of an achievement or accomplishment. You're just on to the next. That was my mentality. I think that was a lot of with like athletics and again in the corporate world, never taking time to actually celebrate. So on my reflection at the end of the year, this arbitrary time, I look back and see like what can I be proud of and what energy like maybe that it took for certain things. And so I look at what do I want to carry with me into the new year? Yeah, and that's my focus is what am I taking with me into the new year? So coming back to I'm going to drink more water, it's that same idea. Now I'm putting energy into the things that I want to grow. I'm watering and nurturing what I want to grow in my life versus trying to pull the things out or change the things that I don't want in my life. So that's like part 2 of why I stopped doing New Year's resolutions. The third is in like traditional Chinese medicine and seasons. Just look at winter. Shorter days, colder. It's a time to turn inward. It's a time to reflect. Nothing grows in the winter. I mean, if you're in Southern California, you can grow things all year round. But if you look at seasons, this is not the time for us to try to like get after all these big changes in our life. This is the time to actually, again, just like rest and nurture yourself and reflect. Right? It's turn inward. And when do things start to grow? In spring, right? And then they're full force in summer. And that was like my first time when I was like, I'm done with New Year's resolutions, was when I was reading a lot more of like traditional Chinese medicine. But then I was studying other like belief systems. It's just, it isn't in the natural cycle to be trying to like we shouldn't be harvesting things right now, you know, like we shouldn't, we're not planting anything right now. Nothing's going to grow if I put something in, like even garlic you do in the fall and it pops up in the spring. Like this isn't the time to be trying to grow anything. And I think just trying to flow a little more with natural cycles has become really important. It's not like I just like turn off and I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. But it just doesn't make sense to have this like definitive moment in the middle of winter to say like, I want to change all these things in my life. And then the last part, as I mentioned briefly, is changing things makes us see, like, I think a lot of times we think then something is wrong if we're looking to change it. And as I like mentioned briefly, like we are all whole and complete. We just have to see that we are whole and complete. And that's what I think is nice about readjusting your energy into what are all the things I'm proud of, and can I water that? Can I nurture that? Can I allow that to grow? Because if I allow that to grow, there won't be room for, there might be a couple weeds, but there's not going to be room for the other stuff to grow.
So, agreed.
That was kind of my my little rant on where and that's what I think is cool about your theme idea. And that's another area that I've focused a lot on is I think your theme idea is very in line with this idea that I've, like in some of my workshops, I've kind of talked about is, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up every day? And James Clear writes Atomic Habits, and he talks about to switch habits, it's not about I'm going to lose 50 pounds. It's about becoming the man who goes to the gym every single day.
Right.
So that's, I think, when you think about, instead of like, I have this New Year's resolution to whatever, why not think about like, well, who do I want to be every single day? And the theme is like giving you the opportunity to be like, show up every day. It's like, this is how I want to be today. Yeah. I'm going to find the child in me every single day.
Yep. I heard something along the same lines of, what is it? It's, instead of, I want to have a lot of friends, is be the person that people want to be friends with.
Yeah.
Right. And that just will naturally come. So I totally agree. I love everything that you said. I do want to just talk to some of those things, if that's cool. That's when I say it's not about the pose. Usually it follows, right? Like, yeah, you arrive to a destination, and then what's next? The next destination. So why the fuck do we care about the pose, right? Like, yeah, like be happy you did the pose, right? The only place that we're going to is death, right? It's not something morbid, right? I hope I'm not telling you anything new, right? Like that's the main place we're arriving to. Like the journey is the pose, right? The journey, it's how do we get there? So what are we taking with us? What are we proud of? What have we accomplished? Right? And yeah, maybe it is the pose, but don't forget that you did that pose, because usually it's just, we did that pose, on to the next. Right? What do you?
Or you did the pose, and the next day you can't, and then what?
Yeah. Yeah. Or you did the pose at in a 5 o'clock class, 5 p.m. class, and then your next class you go to 6 a.m. You're probably not doing the pose again. Right? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But yeah, it's a great point.
And I think what comes from there is that's where you're losing the curiosity, or you're predetermining you're setting expectations, which then is a predetermination. And it's funny you talk about it, because this week on Tuesday I was talking in my class. I was like, explore it differently. If you always shorten your Trikonasana before you take it, because the teacher 2 years ago, who is probably right, told you to shorten it because for your body, but like, are you who you were 2 years ago? So why do you just live into that same exact mold every single day? You've now decided it's not about the pose, it's how you're relating to it. Well, this is just how I do my Trikonasana. I'll try something else.
Yeah. It's how you think you fit into it, and you've changed.
And we're changing all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I love it. Yeah, this is great conversation. and then for you brought up the seasons, and I just had this conversation with a friend. So I definitely want to start, and I'm going to start. That hasn't been my focus in these last couple months, is to start a mastermind group, right? And what that looks like, I don't know yet, but it's just going to be a group of people that come together that want to accomplish things in life. Right. And how we go about doing that, right? Like there's methods, there's tasks, there's things that we'll go through in that, but seasons is a big part of that. And while we have this cyclical thing of seasons, physically, right? Like right now it's winter, right? Like you said, we're turning in, right? We're using our resources that we hopefully got from the summer. Right? There's the whole reap and sow thing. And I explain this to my friend is, right, you reap what you sow, right? You sow your plants. You don't sow in winter, right? If you sow in winter, nothing's growing. You already said that, right? That makes sense, right? You're going to go back out there, right? You're watering it, and the water's just going to freeze, and, you're just not going to grow shit. And, right, you sow in the spring, you reap in the summer, right? Maybe you go through fall. then you get all your resources. And in the winter, right, like it's a squirrel and their nuts, right? They're in their tree, they have their stockpile, and they survive. But I do believe that we also have seasons in our life that maybe don't match the physical seasons. And that can be, and you have to be aware of that, right? You have to be aware that right now is your winter. Or right now, this aspect of your life is in the winter phase. And it's not time for you to grow or reap. And hopefully you did that already and start planning for spring, right? Like, what are you looking forward to in spring to sow? What are you looking forward to in spring to start planting? And, what do you want to see grow into the year, right? Because after winter always comes spring. It's always there, right? And it may be short, it may be long. You have to adjust yourself, right? Me and my buddy have a thing where he says to me, I just got to adjust my surfboard. And it talks about surfers in the ocean. When the waves may not be as they want, right? It doesn't matter how you want the wave. The wave's coming this direction. Guess what you do? You adjust your surfboard. You don't try to change the ocean. And so my thought is, like, you have to adjust accordingly and, adjust your surfboard or adjust and make accommodations for what you're planning to sow and then what you get to reap afterwards. When your summer comes, oh, now I get to do this. Now I get to enjoy this. But no, guess what's coming next? Fall's coming. It's going to start getting cold again, right? Guess what's after fall? And we can't be surprised at that, right? We have to remember that it's always going to come back, right? And things are going to die, and that's what happens in the fall. It's funny, right? Fall's beautiful, but everything's dying. Why do we think fall's beautiful when everything's dying? And yet we don't want to die, right? And then the winter comes, and it's just brown and gray and dark all the time, and then we come back through spring and we know it's coming again. So yeah, I love that you brought up seasons, and you just have to recognize what season you're in, whether it's winter outside and it's winter in your life. Funny enough, right now, I was having a conversation with my friend, and I was like, yeah, I'm in the dead of winter right now, like both physically and mentally. Like I know it, and I'm doing winter things. I'm taking care of myself. And he's in spring, and I'm like, that's awesome. And everything about his life, everything that I get to see from an outside perspective, I'm like, you're in spring. Yeah, that's so cool to see you, right? It's like to see things starting to blossom. And I'm like, oh wow, this is gonna, like, your summer is gonna be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think another part of that, like you said, like the seasonality of life, and that can be years, right? And sometimes you're just in survival mode. And what you said about the way you don't try to change the waves is this allowing, like, we don't try to, like, it would be insane to think we could change the season, but we try to do that in our seasons of life.
Right.
And it's like, if you're in survival mode, if you're in winter survival mode, just be in it. And by allowing it is where you start to allow it to change to the next season. And right. I think there's an element of trust. And they say that about the trees. They don't try to hold on to their leaves. They let them fall because they know they'll come back. And we try to hold on to things so hard. We try not to let things die. We try not to let go of things because we're afraid of losing it, versus knowing that it'll come back and maybe it'll look different, but it will always bloom again.
Yeah. I love that.
It's hard. Allow and trust. Like, that's all very hard.
And there's an aspect of faith that goes into that too. Right? You have to trust it, and you have to have faith that it is going to come back. Right? Because you don't know. Right? Yeah. I love it. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, right, so what you're doing for your year, and talk a little bit about sankalpas, right? And just relate that, give us a little flavor of that, how that relates to like yoga a little bit, and just how you've taken it outside of your yoga practice and that type of thing.
Okay, what I'm doing for the year, I don't know. I'm just showing up and living the way I want to live every day.
I love it. Hey,
no,
so
really.
Real quick though, we talked about this before we started our podcast. Is like we have these goals. That's another thing with goals. Is we have these freaking goals, and we're like, we gotta get there and do that. And I set goals. I set things that I want to get to. The issue is we have to remember that the path to get there is not going to be what it looks like, right? And we talked about this, and I think that's where you're about to go. So please go ahead. But yeah, like,
oh man, I loved goals. I was in operations. Goals were like the thing, and I was good at creating a roadmap to goals. I was like, okay, this is where we're going to go. Let's work backwards. Okay, boom, this is where we start. Like, man, that was my jam. Oof.
I feel like we're in a corporate meeting right now.
It was like, I was so good about strategic planning. You would not guess it. I shifted a lot of my yoga nidra training, which for those who don't know what it is translated would be like yogic sleep, or like conscious sleep. It's a passive meditation, guided passive meditation, but through that is where I learned a lot more about sankalpas. And it's kind of similar to an intention would be the best, like easiest way for people to relate to it. And it is putting you in a direction versus like this set goal. And the reason that we use a direction versus a specific goal, it's a few reasons, is what you said. You don't get places in a linear fashion, right? And so a direction actually allows you to go this way and still be going in the direction.
Right.
The other part is by going in a direction, you're open to like actually any outcome. And so you're open to outcomes you didn't even know were possible. So goals, when we set goals, they are based on past experiences, right? So in business, usually like previous years, right? We're going to measure it out. We're going to take all these things that we already know to create our goal.
Yep.
So we're basically using the past to create our future.
Yeah, for sure.
And what a direction does is it actually leaves it open-ended. So it can show up in a way that you didn't even expect it to show up. One example that I've shared before is at one point we were working in one of the trainings I did, we were working on a sankalpa, and they said, and we were actually working with a little more like specific versus just what you would think in terms of like a general direction. And they said something that you think you can accomplish in the next like 6 to 18 months. And I always had this idea of kind of that I'm passionate about yoga education, so training teachers, and we've talked about that. And I was like, but a yoga school, like brick and mortar, is definitely not in line with my lifestyle. But I just created an intention because that was the exercise I was doing, and I knew there was something in there. Set it, I used it a few times. Sure enough, about 18 months later, one of the old studio owner here in Cody was really passionate about training teachers. And we started to talk about doing continuing education. Now all of a sudden I'm having a conversation with you Alan, about doing a yoga school. I didn't know. Like I set that intention, let it go, like didn't even come back to it because I was like, oh, like I just kept thinking like brick and mortar, like I don't know, like this is not. And here it is. It's coming to fruition in a way that I actually didn't even think of and didn't know how it would, but it's showing up. And a lot of why I've shifted away from goals and I've worked more towards like visions or how I want to, like, what is my ideal life or how do I want my days to be like, and actually focusing on that is first, it makes it a lot clearer in every decision I make every single day. Is this moving me in the direction of my ideal life? or is it not?
I love it.
And then the other part is when you work with, say, like a vision, and it's not just necessarily visualizing, but like you could write it all down, like do a creative writing exercise, right, of writing your ideal life, but have it be an experience. I wake up in the morning and I look over and I see my partner and I smile at this feeling of contentment for this loving relationship. I wake up, I grind my coffee, whatever it is. Involve as much of the experience you can and all of the senses, because when we build more of the senses into it, it resonates on a deeper level. And so that's kind of what I've just, and I'll write my vision over like a couple times a year, and certain things will stay the same, like the cores will stay the same, and maybe just the little details of I'm going out to my garden before lunch instead of after lunch, whatever it might be. Right. But it's, so like when I like look at this year, what do I have in store for this year? Like I actually just making decisions or choices in line with how I want to live my life. And that's everything. That's just makes it really easy and sometimes really hard. And it's just being open for it to showing up the way it's going to show up versus how I think it needs to show up, because that's what I know. Because again, if it has to show up a certain way, it's based on information that I already know. And that's not creating any new opportunities.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think an aspect of what you're saying is, right, going back to the time in your day, is being very guarded of your time. Right? Like you're saying, like, is this going in the direction I want my life to go? Right? And you should ask yourself that. And if the answer is no, you shouldn't be doing that. Right? And that's to me is, right, guarding your time very carefully. Time is a finite resource. Right? Time, you can make more money. Right? We can, there's finite oil, gas, that type of thing, but we continue to get more of it, right? We're continuing to tap into natural energy resources, but time, you waste an hour and you lose that hour forever. You never get that hour back. So I think that's how I relate to everything that you just said. I think it's really critical. So tell me where are you going in life? What do you want in life?
What do I want? Oh my gosh, that's going to be a whole episode. I think we should talk about your goals. That is like a breakdown of a whole episode.
Give us an idea. Give us a flavor.
Oh, you already
Give us a sample. Give us a sample. I want to, right? Like the first one's free, right? Like you got to give us a sample.
Free. Yeah, a little taster.
A little taster.
Oh, no. I mean, I just, part of why I moved to Wyoming is it's sustainability is really important to me. And so finding ways to be able to live off the land, that is one important lifestyle component for me. And then I would like at some point to have a family. So have a life partner and have a kid. And I think part of that really that was my revelation in my early 30s, was like, I just never thought that was something I wanted. And I think it was just, I was very conditioned into a certain mindset. And that, I think there's something beautiful. I'm very fortunate to have an incredible relationship with my parents. And as I got older, that became stronger and probably was a bigger drive behind that shift in my mindset. And I think the youth is where the change is. It's really hard to shift fixed mindsets or people's. It's really hard just to say, like, you've been doing things this way for this long, and we demonize people who have been doing something a certain way for so long, But it's just, we're all the same. Like, it's really hard for people to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have a lot of passion in, again, like that, like you're talking about with children, and just this clean slate. And I'm romanticizing it, but I would rather romanticize it than not. Because I think when we don't, that's sad to me.
Yeah. And why not?
Yeah.
Right? Why not go for the best version of love that you can get?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's work. Right? It's work. You have to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not relationships, any of it. It's not just given to you.
Mm-hmm.
And right? So if you're going to put in the work, and if it's going to be hard, why not go for the best possible thing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why not romanticize it and, strive for that life that you want, right? Like, the ball gown coming down the stairs, right? Whatever that looks like, right? Like, whatever your version of pick a topic looks like, why not work to make that the best that it can be?
And why not just it is so wonderful to live in this mindset of magic.
Mm-hmm. Kids believe in magic. When we become an adult, we're like, oh, fuck that.
I know.
They're just tricking us. No, like, how about this, right? Go watch some magic videos on YouTube, and your goal is to be in awe. That's right. Act like a child and just quit trying to figure it out. Quit trying to figure out how they did it, and just, wow, that was just magic. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Like, every moment we have is magic, and I guess that's been a lot of my personal, just the decisions I've made as over the years, again, like going towards this vision. And it's not like I'm trying to get to that vision, because it's something that I'm like, again, I'm living it every day. I'm not, okay, I got this. Okay. And now what? On to the next. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is cool about working with a day in your ideal life as the direction. Because that's every day. Yeah. It's not like a specific day that I got to my ideal life and then I just stop.
Yeah. Friday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're not waiting for Friday.
Yeah. And so I have the opportunity to live that ideal life every single day that I make a choice in that direction.
And sometimes you don't get to live that life that day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you wake up and you get to try it again.
And it's I think that's the other, when you talked about failure, how do you define failure? Mm-hmm. And we can't. This is another gem from my Yoga Nidra training. Alya Howe says, "You are the author of your actions, not of the outcomes." And that's where every day I get to choose who I want to be, how I make my choices. How they turn out, I can't control. Yeah. But I can't control anything. Like, I can't actually. Right. It doesn't matter how much I think I can control the way things will pan out in my life. I can't.
Yeah. And that's where the smile and the laugh comes in. Is you fell. Yeah.
And maybe you need to cry. And and do that. Like, right?
Right.
It's feeling, I think that's another thing when you were talking about that resonated with me so much, is like that full feeling all of it, feeling the whole range of what comes up. Yeah. Laughing at it, crying, being hurt, and just, that's okay too.
Yeah, it is.
And the more that you can feel hurt, the more you're actually going to be able to get up and laugh about it or move on, or
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So I'm going to just tell a quick hunting story. Okay. We don't have enough of those in the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.
We got a lot of hippie tonight.
We have a lot of hippie today. A lot of hippie. So bear with us, folks. But we were hunting antelope up in Wyoming this season. And I like to think that I'm a pretty good shot with my rifle. And first light of the day, came up on some antelope. I had a shot at, I think, 300 yards, 250 yards, something like that. And I made a terrible shot. I made a really bad shot. And when you make a really bad shot in hunting, it doesn't mean you miss, right? Like, that's just a bad shot, right? That's a bad shot, you missed, and yay, we get to go on with our life. And, but a really bad shot is you hit something that you didn't want to hit. And as the rest of that morning unfolded, I took multiple other shots at the animal that continued to be bad shots. And they just kept stacking up on each other. And in the moment, I would say, I'm not going to tell you how many shots it takes because you're going to think I'm a terrible hunter. But I would say, I would say, reloading for the umpteenth time, I'm looking down my scope, and this antelope wouldn't let me get any closer than 250 yards. And a lot of things change after you fire your rifle more than 2 or 3 times, right? Because now your barrel gets heated up and things change. Wyoming's very windy. You're dealing with a lot of external aspects. But I'm sitting there looking down the scope of my rifle as this antelope is still standing, still moving, and I'm literally crying. And I because that's not who I am as a hunter, right? As a hunter, right? When you're out there, you're taking a life. Like that's the one bad thing where hunters get a bad rap is like everyone thinks like we go out there and we enjoy killing things. It's not about killing things. Yeah, that's part of what we do. But we want it to be as merciful as possible. And I failed miserably in that moment. And it was like one of the worst feelings ever. And I just let myself be in that moment. And I'm sitting there crying, and this animal's still standing, and I'm still looking down my rifle, and I still knew I had a job to do to finish. And I asked God, I was like, please help me, please. Like at this point, like I just need help. And the animal finally went down. And in hunting, right, like you immediately with a rifle, you immediately go up to it, make sure it's passed, it's moved on. And I did that, and I left my pack probably 400 yards back. I left my buddy 400 yards back, and I went up and the animal was dead, and I dropped my rifle and I just sat down and I just like let it all go. And like I just had to be in the moment. I couldn't take it any other way. Like I fucked up, and yeah, that's gonna happen in life, and you have to deal with it. You have to just be okay with that. And my buddy walked up on me, and right, I'm sitting there, dead animal next to me and like tears, like literally ugly crying, right? The whole right, like just full blown ugly crying, and I just knew I had to be in that moment, and because that's not who I am and who I want to be. And thankfully the rest of the day panned out really well. I redeemed myself quite well with my next 2 shots. But after that on 2 different animals. But yes, you just have to, the point of telling that is you just have to be in the moment. And you have to feel, like know what you've done, right? Know in this case, the repercussions for what you've done, that an animal suffered because of you. And know that sometimes that's part of it. So yeah, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
There was something else I wanted to talk about. What was it? I'm having these brain farts today, and I don't know what's going on.
Do you want to share your... And maybe it'll let it simmer and come back, but your goal making process or... Yeah, so it's not much different than yours. When I think about it, I have goals. So I have a whiteboard. I'm in my office, and directly in front of me I have a whiteboard. So when I'm like
giraffe necking up, I'm looking, and I have an entire list of goals that are there, and there's no deadline, right? So some of them are, so like one of them is to get my ERYT, which is something that maybe is more ego-driven, right? So ERYT, RYT is registered yoga teacher. And what's crazy is there's only one source, the Yoga Alliance, that you get that from. And really you just pay money to get that. And the E is just saying that you're experienced. You're an experienced registered yoga teacher. And you get the E by teaching 1,000 hours. Right? So like that's a goal on my board. I'm not sure what it's fueled by. I don't look into what fuels all of my goals, right? Because I know some of my goals are totally ego-driven.
I will say, it's to do continuing education, you have to have your 1,000 hours of teaching. So that, in terms of like, that for me personally, not ego-driven, but I was like, I want to teach. I want to be able to do continuing education.
Right.
And we've talked about yoga school, so it's, like a lot of that.
Absolutely. And I'll get into my thoughts on the Yoga Alliance in a different episode, right? But I think that me being the same level teacher as Iyengar is ridiculous. Right? There's no differentiator. Right? If that makes sense. I don't know if yogas need ranks like old style martial arts or anything, but I'm not the same as someone who, right, has developed this, right? So I feel like, right, whether, I don't even know, right, Iyengar probably wasn't an ERYT. There was probably no Yoga Alliance back then.
Well, but and it's the same thing I was talking about with like shaman. Like there's no, what we feel like we have to have this checklist, like mark the boxes and get the certification. If we don't have a certification, then we're not legit. And there's something to training. Like I am not taking away, but how do you judge? How can you classify these like people into the same box with really no understanding of like how are they living in their life, or how are they bringing, like what is the other? I don't know. Like you could teach yoga and not even practice it ever at home because you check the box. And so there's there's just no authenticity necessarily behind it. And that's, but we all do it. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, I'm like, I gotta check this box.
Right.
But,
and so,
hijacked your.
No, you're good. You didn't. So the ERYT thing is nothing I can finish sooner. I mean, I could add more yoga classes to my schedule, which I'm not going to do. Right. Yeah. I like the schedule I have for my yoga classes. Right. We're talking about doing a retreat that adds to it, but I know, right. I've calculated my hours, the hours that I have currently and the hours that I'll be getting, right. I know when I'm going to get my ERYT. It's going to happen this year. Right. It's just, I'm not rushing to get there. Again, it's the journey to it. Right. And what am I learning? Right. What did I learn from those 1,000 hours? I think back to, I did a post online on Instagram. I went back and I looked at my old yoga teacher training notes from my teachers. And both of them, I had two main teachers, and both of them were like, where's the Alan that I know? That was their comments. And I read that and I'm like, oh shit, like that, it was a reminder to me to continue to be me. Like I make an impact in the way that I teach yoga, and I didn't do that in my final exam, right? In yoga teacher training, they called me on it, rightfully so. And so when I hear and I read and I think about that, and it makes me show up for the person that I want to be to my students and, for yoga, to my wife, right? Like, where's the Alan, right? Who do you want to be? You want to have lots of friends, and well, be the person who has lots of friends, right? You want to do this, be that person. I'm not going to go through all my goals because literally it's a list. I have a huge whiteboard, and it goes down to a lot of it is based on, expanding this yoga thing, this podcast thing, this mastermind thing. But there's no, again, I go back to, I love the directional versus linear that you brought up. I've never thought of it like that. And the image that came up into my mind was a major interstate. Right, you might be driving on an interstate, and like it says, and I'll use a great example of a freeway in Arizona. You're driving on the I-10 going east, and at one point the I-10 goes south for like 100 miles. Right, but how are you still on the I-10 east? You're going south. What? Well, right, it's directional, right? Like you're still moving towards the way you want to be. The way, where you want to go in your life. So that's really it. And I would say some of my goals are definitely ego driven. What I want my body to look like. The biggest thing, I just had a conversation with a friend about body awareness and body shaming and that type of thing. And for me, there's no trauma, there's no disorder there, right? It's just, like this is what I want my body to look like, and if I can get there, cool, and if I can't, cool, and I'm just gonna enjoy the journey to try to make that happen. Where I think, I'd be remiss not to mention that there are people out there with eating disorders because of, the imagery that we put out there for young girls and even men, in my conversation with my friend, she brought up that her boyfriend has an eating disorder, and that in alone, right, a man with an eating disorder, that doesn't happen, that doesn't exist, right? Like that's untrue, and we just don't talk about it, right? Because men are inherently compared to other men, and I've always been smaller stature. I'm tall, but I'm ectomorph, I think, but. Right, always just been smaller stature, and always standing next to like a bigger guy. I'm always like I feel tiny, and I make myself tinier. Like I squeeze in, and and this is one thing I say in my yoga classes. Right, don't make yourself smaller. Right, quit trying to make yourself fit in a hole you don't fit in. Right, you take up the space that you take up. So that's, I have. I do break my goals down: financial, family, personal, fitness, business. So I do break them down in that aspect. I have like 5 main categories that I put my goals into. And I just want to make sure I have balance. I think that's a big aspect.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How, with categorizing them, how do you, when you're deciding it, do you also look at how they all fit with each other, since our lives aren't, it's like I'm going to come back to a business. If the marketing department isn't in communication with the finance department, things can go horribly wrong.
Right. Right.
So do you take that into account, or are they kind of separate and then you see how they're going to work together, or what's your approach with that?
Yeah, I think that everything I do is interconnected, and I have to keep that in mind. So I do take that into consideration, but I also look at the resources that I have, right? And I always look at I said this earlier, I look at time as my finite resource, and now's the time to do the things that you want. And it doesn't matter how old you are, right? My wife is back in school. She's going to be finishing her master's degree in May, and it was a long journey to get her to go back to school for her master's because of a lot of things that you mentioned, right? Being a woman in corporate America, and this is what success looks like. And, she fights I don't want to be, an old woman back in school type of thing. And it was many conversations of, this was 3 years ago. So you're 34. You're going to live till you're 80, right? We have to make that assumption. We have to make the assumption that we're going to live till we're 80, but we're going to die tomorrow. Right. So I don't know if that makes sense, right? It's definitely, it's definitely a contradiction, but right. Like you have to, right. If you were to die tomorrow, what would you do today? Then do that. Go fucking do that right now. Stop what you're doing and do that. Right? If you knew 100% you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do today? Do that. And now, knowing that you're going to live till you're 80, right? Average lifespan of Americans, and it continues to grow, is 79 and a half, right? So I say 80. Right? So now that you know you're going to die tomorrow, but you have, for her at 34, I'm not going to do math because we all know what happens when I do math. Right? Like you have a bunch of years left to do that thing. And when she finally understood and realized that herself, she was like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. Yeah. And now the talks are coming up about her doctorate. Right? And we talked about her doctorate back then. Like you were just going through it, but now it's becoming real life, and she's questioning whether or not she should do it or not. And it's like, just do it, right? The years are going to go by. Shrek has the song. I don't remember who it's by. The years keep coming and they don't stop coming, right? It's the lyrics of a song. It was in the movie Shrek, and I think it's like Chumbawamba or something. Like that, I don't remember who. But yeah, right? Like the years are going to go by. You are going to spend your next 5 years doing something. Why not make it the thing that you want, the thing that you're striving towards? And that's the message and the support I want to give my partner, my wife. Make sure she understands, like, just, go do it. Right? Because the time is going to go by, and then you're going to wish, why didn't I do this? Right? We don't regret the things that we do. We regret the things that we don't do. So I give you this long answer to say, yes, I think about everything in a way that it's connected, but I think of time as the finite resource, and you have to act now when it comes to things regarding time. When it comes to things regarding money and financial situation, you need to act now, but you can also make more money. How many people... I told you about the Kanye West episode of Joe Rogan and how, right, the first part was terrible, and then you ended up listening to it. And, I bring up Kanye because he was $50 million in debt. And now the guy's worth $5 billion, something like that. Something, right? Something, I don't remember. Yeah, something ridiculous. But he's worth some crazy amount of money after, right? So you could always make more money. And some people might hear this and be like, get turned off for me saying that, right? But it's just what you put out there, right? He set that goal. He says it in the episode. He set that goal that he wanted to be worth a certain amount, and he went and did it. And you have to be aggressive, right? Aggressive, people hear that word and they think that's a bad word. You have to be aggressive in what you want. And I go back to what you said, right? Like you have a path that you want to go on. It's directional. You have a way that you want to be, and you have to guard your time and be aggressive in doing so. Because if there's something that comes up that makes you do a U-turn and turn back away from where you're wanting to be in life, you should say no to that, and very aggressively say no to that. So when I think about my goals, I think about the things that I want to be. And I want to be a good friend. I want to be, a good father, right? I don't have kids yet, right? But we I want to be a good husband. And, but what does that look like? And I don't know. And, what tools do I have? And what magic powers, what superpowers do I have? And I think yoga is one of them. And just how am I using that to make an impact on other people? And how am I showing up for other people? And how am I showing up for myself? you know, that hunting story. Like, how was I showing up for myself? So I think that's really where, like, my goals, and again, some ego driven, some not, some, you know, are this romanticized, you know, fairy tale dream of what I want it to look like. And
I love it.
yeah, maybe it'll look like that. Maybe it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another brain fart. I wanted to say something again, but whatever. That's clearly the day. Dude, we've been talking for quite some time. Holy shit. I looked at the clock and I can't believe how long this has been.
Yeah.
This is why we wanted to record our freaking conversations, because this is what happens. We schedule we schedule a 20-minute call. No shit. This is really why we started it. Was we would schedule a 20-minute call to talk about something, and then it'd be like, oh, it's bedtime.
Yeah. It's like, pew, pew,
yeah,
pew, pew.
Right.
All good.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I think.
That's
here you go.
Yeah. Got it. So, my slogan, right? My mantra for life.
Yes.
Right. Work for what you want, then go get it. Right. It's everywhere. Right. I have it tattooed on me. I have it in my office. I have it literally everywhere. I've made shirts. I've made stickers, and right, you need to have your precepts everywhere so that you're constantly reminded of them. Right? If that thing is what you want to be in life, you need to have it everywhere, because when life comes at you, when you're out in the field and you're elk hunting, elk hunting is fucking hard. One of the hardest things I've ever done. And right, when you're out there miserable and you just want to turn around and go home and pack up and leave, you have to be able to turn to that thing that's keeping you going. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to say, yes, okay, this is why I want to do it. This is why I'm going to keep going forward. Mm-hmm. And so my mantra, work for what you want, it was something that came up through conversation with my wife, right? I love my wife to death, and we have an amazing relationship because I believe she supports me and I support her. And I think that's what good relationships are, to do our own things, mm-hmm. right? It's not about doing things together, right? Yeah, you do things together, but it's about, right, like, what do you want in life? Yes, I'm going to support you to get you there, and the same. And you help build each other up. And it's like seasons, right? You have to know when it's time, like, you need to survive and help mm-hmm. your partner get to the next level. Mm-hmm. And then your partner needs to know when it's time for them to stop, move into survival mode, and help get you to the next level. And mm-hmm. We were in Thailand, and I just didn't understand, and I still don't. I definitely have imposter syndrome, but I didn't understand why or how I deserved to be where I was in that moment. Mm. And it was her that was like, you fucking work your ass off. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to share something, right? Like, for those people that feel the same way, what can I share? And that's how I came up with work for what you want, then go get it, right? Because and they go together, right? So many people say, oh, that was handed to them. Mm. They didn't work for that. That was just given to them. And for me, it's no. You go, you work for it first. You have to work for it. Nothing is given to you, right? You have to show, right? If you want a promotion, in corporate America, you have to show that you're capable first, and then you get promoted. Mm-hmm. And that's how life is, right? Like, you want to have a good relationship, you have to work to make that relationship good, and then the relationship becomes good. And then you have every right to boast and brag about it and be like, fuck yeah, like, and no one can take that from you. No one can take that joy from you, right? You give them the power to do that. So it's your choice to not give them the power to do that. And they can say whatever they want, mm-hmm. right? They can say, yeah, he didn't earn that. Yeah, well, that's cool. I didn't earn that. You're right. But you know that you earned that. You know that you worked your ass off. And then it's the other side of it. Well, how do I get my new goals? It's the same thing. I have to work for it. And it's a good reminder, like, yeah, you know what? No one's going to give it to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to keep moving. And overnight success takes 10 years, right? So I just got to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep working for it. And then when I get it, I'm like, yeah, I got it. And it's back to what you said, right? Like, it's when you get it, it's showing it off. It's right, that kid, mm-hmm. right? That kid, hey, do you want to see my new doll? Hey, let me show you. Look, right? Like, and that's, and you can only be so interested in that doll for so long, but that kid is going to continuously show it to you. Mm. So you have to be, like, fuck yeah, like, you want that? Fucking go get it. Mm-hmm. Hell yes. And
you have to also believe that you just, like, I think that's a big, you have to believe that you deserve it too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a missing, people work and work and work, but if you don't ever believe that you deserve it, you also might never get it. And that's where we have, like, just a lot of the work I do it on, like, more subtle levels is mm-hmm. because there's only so much we can do on the mind level, on this conscious level.
Yep.
And even when working with sankalpas with people or, like, with coaching people, it's, you can say that you want it all you want. Like, mm-hmm. you can say that.
Yeah.
But if you don't actually deep down inside believe that you deserve it, you actually will never get it.
Right.
And it's what you said, like, it's, and that can be the work, right? And mm-hmm. and I think
that is the work. 100% that is the work.
And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is they're actually, like, doing the tangible work, mm-hmm. but they don't actually believe they deserve whatever it is they're going for.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're going to live into every day.
Yeah, 100%.
Until they can shift.
100%.
Believing in themselves.
Yeah. My shift had to come with grace, right? Like, I had to give myself grace and knowing, yes, I deserve that. Mm-hmm. And there's times I still think I don't deserve it, but I know, yes, you know what? I do deserve it. And, mm-hmm. but I'm going to keep going forward, and I'm going to keep going mm-hmm. to make sure that I continue to deserve it. And I'm going to make sure that other people learn that they deserve it too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I love this. All right. Yeah, journal prompt?
Journal prompt. Yes. Yeah. So we talked about a lot. God, that whole shit, I really can't believe. Yeah, the show notes are going to take a while. So in the show notes, in the show notes, I'm going to make sure I'm going to get those recommendations from Bree on shamanism to just add to it. So if you're interested in learning a little more about shamanism, these are going to be great resources. I'll put them in the show notes. Journal prompt. Grab your journals. Hopefully you had your journal with you during the episode, unless you were, like, driving in a car. But grab your journal, grab your phone, grab whatever, your diary. Like, we talked about this. I'm not going to go into that, right? But grab it and just write, right? You heard us talk. You heard us blabber for however long we've been on, like over an hour and a half, I believe. Just write whatever thoughts are coming into your mind. Write your goals. If you feel like you set resolutions and you failed them already, write that too. And remember that tomorrow's a new day. And just write and know that when you look back on this today, right, you're going to have a recorded version of what you thought in that moment. And you're going to get to reflect on that. And maybe you can start theming your years, and, you can reflect on what you have and what you want more of. Write what you're grateful for. We started this off with gratitude, and gratitude's dicey because gratitude, it's seen as this, like, corny, hokey thing now, because so many, like, yoga teachers especially, we talk about gratitude, and a lot of people just talk about gratitude, but really, what are you grateful for? And if you say nothing, you need to take a longer look at your life, right? Because when you wake up in the morning, you woke up. That's honestly, for me, yeah, that's magic, right? Mm-hmm. That's magic when you wake up every day, because you could die tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Remember that you can die tomorrow, and maybe write what you would do if you died tomorrow, right? What you'd do today if you died tomorrow, and write a plan of how you're going to do that. Because you can do that. You don't need to win the lottery. You don't need to be a millionaire to do the things that you ultimately want to do. And unless you say like sailing around on a yacht forever. But even that, there's caveats that you could probably make your way around that. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, right. Yeah, like
go be a boat captain then.
Yeah, go get a shitty sailboat, right? Figure it out, right? If you really want something, you're going to do it. If you really don't, you're going to find an excuse for it. So just grab your journal, write, reflect back on it this time next year, and just see what you wrote. Because this year's going to go by in the blink of an eye, just as 2020 did. 2020, the strangest year ever, flew by, but it was also one of the slower years. But here we are. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. And we appreciate all the support.
Yeah, thank you. See you when we see you. If you want to follow us and our adventures, you can find both of us on Instagram. I'm at Bree Allison. That's BreAllison.
And I am at The Life of Alan Tatone, underscores between each word. To check out our offerings, yoga, one-on-one trainings, workshops, retreats, and a recorded library, you can find the info on our website, thehunterandthehippie.com.
If you have questions for the podcast, about the podcast, feedback, suggestions, or just want to say hi, or find ways to work with us, our email is thehunterandthehippie.podcast@gmail.com. And don't worry, all of this will be in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hopefully you weren't tuned out.
To the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.